I also made, don't have a label on this one yet. This is a blackberry mead. So I made, honey wine, then I added blackberries to flavor it. The blackberries are from my brother's farm that he grew, and it looks excellent. And it still needs to sit for a few more months, probably 6 months. But when I bottled it, I tried a little. It was still very, very good. So yeah, wine. I think it's actually easier to make than beer. There's not as many steps involved in it, but it just takes a lot longer to let it sit. Beer is ready in 6 weeks. Good wine, 6 months, a year. You probably want to let it sit before you drink it. So now we've heated our strike water up to, it's at 175 degrees. We are going to add our grains. Right now, Caleb's going to go ahead and mix the corn in with the other grains. I like to add my grains before my water. I'll add a little bit of grains first, then add my water. I got a pitcher that I'm going to use that for. And it just kind of helps to, you want to make sure that all of your grains are wet and they're saturated, because the barley has a tendency to kind of get caked on the bottom, and and the water doesn't get to it, then it doesn't get the sugars out of it. And you want the sugars. It's very important. That's good. So I take a little bit, probably about half the bag, dump it in. Now I'll take the pitcher and just a little water on it. And then Caleb, you can go and stir as I'm doing that. The type of all grain we're doing today is called batch sparging. The main difference, there's there's more, but there's two major ways of doing it. There's fly sparging and batch sparging. Batch, we add the water, we stir it in, make sure it's all saturated, then we let it settle and drain out. Fly sparging, you'd have a little thing on top. When you add the next step, the sparge, that goes around and just puts a little bit of water at the time, which is how the big boys like Budweiser and Coors all do it. No, it's something different. And but this is a little bit easier way, and it still makes beer that's just as good.
That smells good.
Smells good. It's like beer tea.
Mm-hmm.
But better. Damn, just got a little bit left now. Okay, make sure you got it all stirred in. Okay, now we'll do a temperature reading. Remember, we're shooting for basically between 148 to 160 is the range. If you get above 170, the husk from the grains will release some bad flavors, which you don't want. And on a lighter beer like this, a lager, it might be a little better to be at the lower end of that. But right now we're at 162, so I'm going to add a little bit of cool water. All right, this is the point where you can get in trouble very easily, because you remember that the actual mash tun will absorb some heat, so you don't want to cool it down too much, because it'll even cool down a little bit more as it sits. But I'll just add a little bit. Big part of this is just understanding your system. And then I'll stir it up. It doesn't take much to cool it down. Perfect, 152 degrees. That's as close as you want to get. We'll just drop the top on there. We'll let that sit for 1 hour. During this time, the starches in the grains are converting into sugar, and then we'll drain it out into our boiling pot. Then we'll add our sparge water, let that sit for about 15 minutes, and then we'll drain that out, and then we'll be ready to boil.
About 2 years ago, started brewing, and it was kind of fun to start with. My first red ale turned out quite poor, but Ryan drank it. I think he enjoyed it. I don't even think I have any of that left, but about 10 batches in so far. I like to stick with more of the extract brews because I haven't taken that step yet towards all grain, but I enjoyed it. It's a good hobby to have. It's good to enjoy your own beer.
All right, so this is my hop garden, little patch I made. This is a vine, a hop vine that's growing up this right now. This is glacier hops. You can see it's growing pretty well. It's the first year for them, so they'll grow a lot more next year. I built this little trellis thing. I actually planted 4 different varieties, but only 2 of them came up for whatever reason. The other one that came up is Williamette hops, and it's just barely coming up, just a little guy, but he's still doing all right. But I'm hoping when these get done, I'm going to do a blend with them and make some APAs, maybe a stout with the glacier. Should be pretty good. Next year I'm going to plant the other 2 and let them get going. I built the trellis 10 foot high, which is probably the shorter end by most expert standards, but I didn't want to go too high because there's power lines up there. So now we're going to heat our sparge water, and we're going to be using 4.5 gallons of sparge water. Remember, 2 quarts of water or half a gallon per pound of grain. So we're using 4.5 gallons because we have 9 pounds. So just dump it in here. We'll let that heat up till it gets to about 175 degrees. We're also at a point now where we can empty our wort here out of this. It's very important, since you're using hot water, to get some tubing to drain through that's not your typical plastic tubing, because it will melt that, and maybe not melt it completely, but it will leach some harsh plastic stuff that you don't want. Okay, we'll open it up. We'll take a temperature reading, see where we're at. You're at 153 degrees. We didn't even lose a temperature, so excellent. That's exactly what you want. Couldn't do it better if I planned on it. Yeah. Hold on. Okay, the first thing we have to do, we have to recirculate, and when you run a little bit of the wort through, you're letting the grain bed kind of set, and the grain bed will actually act as a filter. It'll filter out some proteins that you don't really want. So we'll hook this on, and we'll fill. I usually just fill about a pitcher up. It's usually all it takes to recirculate. You should notice it'll start running a little clearer. It'll be very cloudy when it comes out. Some people don't even do this. You want to open it up just a little bit so that it doesn't clog your. Then just gradually open it up a little more. Then you'll fill that up, and we'll dump it back in here. And it's also important to make sure you don't splash the wort around at this point, because it can cause oxidation because the wort is hot. You just want to try to let it drain as softly and gently as you can.